Good Tuesday to you, everybody. Incom 636. Welcome to week kaboom 8. You made it. Last week of the course. Bully. Hey, let's get things started correctly here. Much better now. I am your sufficiently caffeinated communications instructor. How's everybody doing? You hanging in there? Last week of class ends kaput. Everything is finished on the 17th. That's 3-4 days from now. And in between now and then, we got a couple of few things to take care of. Okay, so let's start with some of the usual housekeeping items. Numero uno, your online portfolios are due at the end of this week. I could probably extend the deadline until the 18th for discussion boards and online portfolio posts, if that's any help. If that's something that you're interested in, let me know. I do have a little bit of wiggle room when it comes to accepting the assignments. I have zero wiggle room when it comes to grading and getting the grades in. All right. So give me some feedback and we'll take it from there. Okay. So online portfolio, do put the link to the website, and pretty please make sure that the link works. Put the link to your website in the discussion board, the discussion forum for week 8. And then when you open up the discussion forum for week 8, you're going to see that it is the first item there. So start a new thread that is with your name on it and post your link. And then, for everybody else, have a look at people's stuff and give them some feedback. Okay. Let's help each other out here. All right. The second item to be looked at is the final exam. That also is at the end of this week. It will open up on the 16th and then closes at 11:59 Eastern Daylight Time on the 17th. That is on Saturday. All right. Now, the final exam. I'm wondering, is there an instruction sheet posted in the assignment folders? Yes, there is. All right. Let's just take a look at that. So here's some things you need to know about the final exam. And this isn't new because we've talked about this before. All right. Number 1, it's worth 300 points. Number 2, as I just said, opens on Friday, closes on Saturday. Number 3, there'll be 50 questions. Number 4, you'll have 2 hours to complete it. Number 5, this is a closed book, closed note, closed internet, closed everything, just with the wellspring of knowledge that is your head test, right? No notes. Okay. You'll get one question at a time, and you will not be able to backtrack. That is, jump around from question to question. Take your time. In exams that I've designed like this and given in the past, most people finish in an hour, something like that. Okay. And if you don't know the answer to something, just guess. All right. There's no penalty for guessing. The questions will be a combination of multiple choice, true, false, short answer, and fill in the blank. All right. So the question is, how do you prepare for this exam? And again, this isn't something that's new. We've talked about this before. First and foremost, go back and make sure that you review all of the questions in the discussion forums, week 1, 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. Read the question. Okay. Make sure that if there's within the question, if there's anything that's defined, like blind spots or media literacy or neuroplasticity or, sort of the negative side effects of social networking sites, so-called SNSs, little s. So we're, networking sites. Be able to write, a brief answer as to what an author was up to when, if I ask you, what did Carr mean, when he said that he was feeling less than fully human. What's he talking about? Okay. Um, so if you read the discussion questions, and then if you have any question about the question, go to the text and find the place in the text that addresses the question and read just a little bit in front of it, less than a page, and then a little bit behind it. Okay. And be able to answer all of them. If there's any terms in those discussion posts, be able to define them quickly and clearly. Like, say, if I ask you what Taylorism is, or what does it mean if someone says something is Tayloristic, what did the authors say was Tayloristic? All right, these are all from the discussion questions. If you approach it in that way, then you will do just fine. Okay. So if I ask in a discussion question, Carr suggests that a certain device is not like a book because of its hyperconnectivity and its propensity to distract you as a reader. What device was Robert Carr referring to? All right. So if you do that, and you can look at those discussion posts, look at any terms that are defined within the posts, be able to articulate the concept, the theory, the evidence that the author is getting at that's relevant to the question in the post. Like, say, again, for term definition. When Carr says, I think I said, less than human, but when Carr writes it, he was being turned into a high-speed data processing machine. What's he talking about? Or again, a definition. Be able to know and understand, say, what neuroplasticity is. Or if you're asked a statement that fills in the blank, be able to recognize that. So, the brain's ability to restructure itself on a cellular level is referred to as, and you'll go, oh, yeah, okay, I know that, neuroplasticity. Right. So if you review those things, that is the discussion posts, any terms defined there within, and then familiarize yourself with the evidence, the concepts, the theory, the hypothesis being put forward by the author that relate to those posts, and go back to the text, you're going to do just fine. So you might be saying, geez, man, that seems like a lot to review. Well, I mean, first of all, this is, we are doctoral candidates. Okay. But secondly, there are 4 posts per week. We've had 8 weeks. And so, that's what, 32 posts. And let's say 3 pages per post. Okay. That's 100 pages and a little and some change. That's not much for someone that, that's at your level. You're going to do fine. Okay. If you have any questions or concerns between now and then, please do not hesitate to contact me. All right. So let's take a look at the readings from last week. The readings from, before I do that, let me say a little bit about the readings for this week. This week, what I'd really like you to be focusing on is summarizing the texts. And you'll see that in the discussion questions. I'm essentially asking you, if you were going to recommend this book, if you were going to recommend Carr's book or Potter's book or James's book or Turkle's book, what would you tell a student about it? Okay, how would you summarize the major thesis or theses, if you like, in the book, and give a couple of 2-3 examples that support your summary. Okay. I'm doing this on purpose. There's a method to the madness. I want you to go back and really be familiar with the major ideas that we've covered in these books, because that's I mean, I love to read, but that's the point in reading these books, is so you come away with those ideas, and you don't have to agree with them. All right, that's just what's being kicked around out there on the battlefield of ideas. Okay. All right, let's take a look at last week's readings. We're finishing up Turkle. Oh, by the way, I did not assign specific pages from Turkle for this week. We're up to like chapter 13, and then through to or maybe it's 17, to the conclusion. Read that on your own. Okay. So, and no, I won't be pulling questions for the final exam from that, except maybe from the conclusion as pertains to the discussion of the book for this week's discussion board. And again, maybe, devil take it, I'll just extend the deadline for discussion till Sunday night. All right, so give you a little bit more time to get those discussion boards done. All right, so I just made the decision. I'll push it one more day instead of Saturday, and I'll change the date over on the discussion board. Okay, let's take a look at last week's. We're looking at Turkle. Question number 1: What did Turkle mean when she wrote, "Technology has corrupted us. Robots will heal our wounds?" Question mark. And then cite an example from the text. There were. I mean, most of you got it right. I think all of you got it right, that she's referring, she's in this context of discussion of what the Japanese are doing, and they have robots that meet people and robots that make, visit people in the hospital and this sort of thing. This is irony. This is sarcasm on her part, if you didn't catch it. Joel, so I like what you're doing. This observation presented by Turkle has a twist of irony. Just a little bit. Yeah, Turkle wrote of Japanese culture allowing technology to remove human contact. However, robots are being presented as a way to enchant us into increasingly intense relationships with the inanimate. Are here to propose as a cure for our too intense immersion in digital connectivity. Robots that take away personal contact are now being ascertained. That's the wrong verb. As hope, are now being looked to, or something as the hope to retrain us towards personal contact. Okay, good answer. And I'm not picking on you here, Joel, but for everybody, even when you write a post, think about how you could simplify whatever it is that you say. It's just simplicity. And I think in academics, there's this tendency, this almost presumption, maybe that's a better word, that how we write and what we write must be very erudite, high sounded and very learned and very complicated. No. Keep it simple. Okay. All right, but good answer. Yeah, this is irony on her part. It's sarcasm. She's being sarcastic. And this harkens back to McClellan, who wrote, we often look to technology to do for us what we won't do for ourselves, and we're just as often disappointed. So here in Japan, they've lost these human connections, and because of the heavy dependency on technology. And the solution is the cause of the problem? Yeah, no. Okay, so she's poking fun at this. Okay, question number 2. According to Turkle's research, are people who are hooked on multitasking more or less efficient than those who focus on one task at a time? Support your answer to the citation from the text. Nicolette, you went first. Actually, you went first this whole week, but we'll grab you. Let's take a look at what you're saying. Overtime multitasking was once viewed as blight. Now it is a virtue, says Turkle. Many young people brag on their ability, or brag about their ability to do many things at once. Experts now declare multitasking not just a skill, but the critical skill for being successful in the digital culture. And this again from Turkle. According to Turkle, multitasking studies do not provide any evidence of new efficiencies, or or just a greater efficiency, maybe what you're looking for. Efficiency studies now show multitasking feels good. Now get to the nub of it, because the body rewards it or rewards us with neurochemicals that induce a sort of multitasking high. The high deceives the multitaskers into thinking that they are being physically productive, or maybe just productive. Take out physically. Okay, excellent answer and right on the money. Yeah, and I remember the maybe some of you do too. The whole you have to learn to multitask, and you have to do this, and you have to do that. And I'm old enough that I recall my educational experience that was intentionally and intensely segregated by subject. This was the time for math, and you didn't do anything else. In fact, you were punished for doing anything else except for math. I mean, it was unheard of that you would have listened to music or I mean, we didn't have phones, when I was in elementary school back in the 60s and 70s, smartphones, but that you would have watched something. I mean, we could have had a television running in the classroom. Absolutely, completely not. Likewise for language arts and geography and history. Things were very clearly and intentionally delineated, subject by subject. It just wasn't done. And then, then the craze became, oh, you have to multitask, and you have to, how to do this, and you have to how to do that. And the presumption was, and this is a good good example, I should say, of how what's assumed is absolutely incorrect. That multitasking is the way to greater efficiency and greater task completion. You just do three things at once instead of one thing after another. And the evidence just isn't stacking up. The evidence does not show that there's greater efficiency in multitasking than in, maybe we'll call it single tasking. I'm making that term up. I'm not saying it's official. Okay. And in fact, the evidence there, it is mounting deep and wide that multitasking actually degrades the efficiency that one has during a task. Now, probably because of how I was raised. I mean, schooled, pedagogically, taught how to learn. This is pedagogy. This the study of how we learn. I don't multitask. I mean, intentionally. It's not that I can't. I just don't. Okay. In fact, this is not a boast. This is just a explanation of how I structure what it is that I do. I have found that in terms of my brain work, things that need me to be concentrating, sitting, whether that's writing, grading, fill in the blank, things in which I'm evaluating words, because that's what I work in, or images, because I work in photography, things that I'm doing with my mind. There's a peak efficiency that's hit around about the 4 or 5 hour mark, and then after that, it's not worth my time. So I do my brain work, all right, just to grab a phrase, in about 4 or 5 hours of intense blocked out time. Then, and this is deliberately by design, and Presspot, my constant friend, and I quite deliberately, heavily task myself with a organizer. I mean, this is typical week. And so, for instance, here, tasked, time block by time block. Okay. I quite intentionally task myself for the 4 or 5 hours, and then everything else and anything else that I refer to mentally to this as the brainless work. Shopping, cooking, because I'm the chef à la maison. I'm the person in the house that does all the cooking. Working out at the gym. Uh, any hobby that I want to do. Reading that's not related to work. All right. All of that other stuff. I call that brainless work. I task that out for the rest of the day. I typically put in anywhere from a 10 to 12 hour workday. That's normal for me. I'm up, I don't know, 6:30, 6 o'clock. And I'm working that intense block from about 8, 9 to noon, 1. And then I shift gears and do the other stuff. And I do not multitask. I just refuse to participate because it's not efficient. All right. Now, I can't say, my experience is, demonstrative of the phenomenon, because my experience is just anecdotal. But back to Turkle, research points in the direction that this doesn't work. And in fact, it's a net negative. Okay. Question number 3. What is Second Life? I had not heard of this. Well, I have. I'm very familiar with Second Life, but I hadn't. I thought it'd gone away, actually. But let me get to the question. Sorry. What is Second Life? Have you ever heard of it before reading Turkle's book? What are, according to Turkle, some of the benefits and harms, if any, of a Second Life? Okay, that would make an interesting exam question. It's sort of a short answer. Wink. Stephanie, I'd not heard of Second Life before the book. Something Turkle says is a virtual place rather than a game. People who utilize the platform can create new identities, personalities, and lives, interact with each other online world. She writes, for some people, these virtual spaces are essential to their life off the screen because online experiences were helping them grow. Yeah, and I wonder about that. She states that people can experiment with life and relationships without the risks you would have in the real world. After reading about the situations people take part in Second Life, I will say that I find it disturbing. I can understand the lure of having a perfect life, to look the way you want, have a job the way you want, to have relationships the way you want. However, it's detrimental to detach from reality, including from a person's own family, to live in an alternative life and make corrections with people in the real world, as some of the people Turkle spoke with did. Absolutely, yes. And Nicolette, I know that I read something from you, but you went first. But I love what you wrote here. I busted out laughing when I read this. I created a Second Life account for a prior course that I was taking, but as soon as the course was over, I deleted it. My mind cannot comprehend this phenomenon. I refuse to live a fake life in a virtual world, and God forbid take real money to buy fake money. Yes, exactly. I've not played video games since my youth, and I will definitely pass on the immersive fake life experience. I remember it was like 10 years back when I stumbled upon this, and I did a news story. I was spending a lot of time working at that time as a journalist, and I did a news story in the Christian news. I actually did a lengthy radio interview about this, and I can remember the host. He's a good friend of mine, and he was like, "What? Explain this to me. That you're giving real money. That people give real money to buy non-real clothes for a non-real character. Scratch, scratch, scratch." And I was like, yeah, and I thought, pity the people down at the Salvation Army or at the Find the Room ministry, say at churches that need actual clothes, and the folks walking by, like, yeah, I'd like to help you out, but I spent all my money on non-existent, spent all my real money on pretend clothes for a pretend world. It's like, where are we going? What is happening with this? So, and I'd like to see, take a deeper dive into the research, whether it's Second Life, and there are now a number of these immersive worlds. Many of the video games that are now played are immersive world experiences on platforms like Steam, games like Rust. And why do I know these? Because I study these things. I mean, it's my job. Okay, they are immersive. That there are characters that you're enticed to spend real money on their clothing and their looks, and no, I do not think this is beneficial. And the reason is, and this is part of a wider phenomenon. What these games invite is avoidance behavior. And this is not new. That is the lure of avoidance behavior. Avoidance behavior is at the heart of alcoholism, drug addiction, extramarital affairs, failure to launch in life. That is to get out and get on with whatever it is your career is. And I know, I've recommended a lot of books to you, and I think I have recommended Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. If I haven't, I'll put the link. There's actually two books. One is An Antidote to Chaos, and the other one is an Antidote to Order. Because they're saying, look, you can have too much chaos in a societal structure, and that's not good. And you can have too much order that is to the point of rigidity, and that's not good. So I'll put the links in the announcement for this video, and both are important. But at the heart of both of those books, what Dr. Peterson is saying, and in fact, I think there's a lecture floating around out there on YouTube. If I can find it, I'll put the link in. He's saying, choose your sacrifice in life. Face up to it, man up, woman up, because you will be called to sacrifice. So you can choose your sacrifice, or it will choose you. And avoidance behavior is not the solution to making the tough choice of what's going to be your sacrifice. Are you going to put the time in to develop your career, or are you and endure what goes with that, excluding yourself from other activities that you would prefer, maybe family activities that you're in, reading and studying for exams and writing dissertations and or final projects while everybody else is out, jumping around on a summer's day, licking ice cream. All right. I'm not saying it's fun. It just is. Are you going to choose that sacrifice and endure that, sort of psychological position in, I don't want to say injury. That's a little hard. All right. Deprivation. Or are you going to, screw it up and not study and not finish the dissertation and not finish the final project for those of you in the strategic communications program, and endure that psychological distress or physical distress? Choose your sacrifice, but above all else, do not choose avoidance behavior. And you see the proliferation of avoidance behavior throughout society, not just vis-a-vis things like Second Life, but through the legalization of narcotics and avoidance behavior driving substances like psychedelic mushrooms in Colorado or marijuana use. Proliferation of avoidance behavior is not the route to solving any personal problem or societal problem. And that's really the big problem with things like Second Life. They propose a solution that is not a solution to a problem, that is choosing one's sacrifice. Okay, let's take a look at the very last question and wrap things up here. Question number 4, according to Turkle, why do people use online confession sites? Do they, that is the sites, work? See, now, when you're writing, beware of the ambiguous antecedent. So I had two things that could be, people and sites. So when I say they, I want to tell you, I could have said do online confession sites just to use the noun instead of the pronoun. The sites work? Why or why not? Be sure to, and I apologize for the typo, to site, just to site, the text in your work. Okay, Kylie, let's see what you're up to. Lots of people use confession sites for a lot of different reasons. Turkle notes that people use these sites to vent or share things, weighing on them. However, she goes on to note that online confessions do not lead to, and she's talking about a girl, her to talk to those she is wrong or try to make amends. These online confession sites may be beneficial in allowing someone to confess how they have wronged someone else, but they do not solve any problems. So in a way, they do work, but they do not fix the root of the issue. And there you go, back to avoidance behavior. They work in the sense that they're a catharsis. They let the person go, oh man, I'm glad I'm finished with that, but they don't get to the root of the problem. Now, I have been aware of the trend, and actually before websites, there was not widespread, but there was a phenomenon, particularly up in major cities in the Eastern Seaboard, New York being one of them, of confession telephone lines, in which you could call a telephone number, and it was just a recorder. Back in the day when phone messages were taken on analog devices, so an actual physical device with a cassette tape in it, and you could make your confession. That sound of the beep, you started, and then when you're finished, you were finished. And there was a really interesting study done on the trends, that is, what were people confessing. The problem, as Turkle points out, is although it's cathartic, get it off your chest, that's only half of the problem. To correct the behavior, you have to address the behavior and or make amends for what you did. So for instance, in 12-step programs like Alcoholics Anonymous, one of the steps is making amends. That is going to the people that you hurt, saying, yeah, hey, I'm sorry that I did this. I was under the influence of something that I was powerless to control. I'm getting a handle on it now, et cetera, et cetera. How do I know this? My father was an alcoholic. And so I spent a lot of time in groups for people that were, raised by alcoholics, because it just helped me sort of get my head around what had happened throughout most of my childhood and in my early adulthood. Now, I find this, whether it's online or telephone or whatever the device, confession perplexing, because as a Catholic, as a Christian, confession is just a part of my comings and goings, of my weekly makeup. And in the Catholic Church, for those of you that don't know, when you go to confession and you confess your sins, you're given something to do to address the sin. And in particular, if what you've done has caused harm to someone, this isn't like an automatic, because it depends on the priest, but a good priest will say, hey, look, you got to straighten this out. You shouldn't come to the altar. This is, alluding to St. Paul. You should not come to the altar with gifts, that is sacrifices for the Lord, until you've repaired your relationship with your brother, with your sister. That is, before you've taken a gift to them. And that gift could be, your humility, or your apology, or your resolution to fix whatever it was that went wrong. I mean, I remember, I don't remember what the specific was, but I had my wife and I were going through sort of a bumpy time in our marriage, and I was less than kind in one of our exchanges, that as we were having an argument, and I said some things that I shouldn't have said. And I knew that as a husband, my vocation as a spouse, that did not comport with it. That was not in keeping with my vocation as her husband, as a spouse. And so in confession, I said, hey, I realize this is a sin, and I was really sorry for it. And the priest said, okay, here's part of your penance, in addition to thinking on the sort of the biblical implications of failing as a spouse, and the strength that you can take from the grace of God to be a better spouse. I want you, for the next, I think it was a month, the next 4 weeks, 3 times a week, to do something for your wife without asking her if she needs it or telling her that you're going to do it. So, for instance, he said, I want you to sweep the floor in the kitchen. I want you to do all the laundry. I want you to make sure that the children all have a bath, or, whatever. In other words, he, in addition to sort of saying, okay, I hear that you did something wrong. This guy was a good priest. He realized that the correction, the correction to the problem was to reverse the behavior. That is a behavior in which I was focused on me, an egotistical position, and rather reverse that by being focused on my wife, on my spouse. And I got that. I'm like, oh, okay, I get that. And so what Terkel is pointing up is when you take that element out, that is the addressing the heart of the matter, the root of the behavior, the maxim, the essence of the issue, when you take that out and you just have catharsis, she doesn't use this word, but Marshall McLuhan got at this. He said that this leads to narcissistic behavior. That is, instead of the problem, the problem originates from I, and then when you take out the corrective behavior in relationship to the thou, that is you, it's just more I, which is narcissism. So don't do that. Okay. Excellent answers and participation, one and all, as usual. Thank you so much for your hard work and all of your reading and your discussion. I really enjoy reading your back and forths, listening to the gears turn. I look forward to it. In fact, I'm clicking and I'm going, oh, who's responding to that? So I thank you. Spend time completing your portfolios if you haven't done so already. Link is in this week's discussion board. Post it there. Get ready for the exam. Okay, I will extend, command decision. I'll extend the deadline for Blackboard posts and your portfolio posts till Sunday night instead of Saturday night. Give you a little extra breathing room. So focus on the exam, and I know you're going to do fine. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for everything this semester. I think about you. I pray about you. I hope that, once this is done, you get a chance for a little bit of a break. And I will see you on Blackboard. God bless. Bye-bye.